Salãmun Alaykum, everyone. So, Masha Allah, with the blessing of God, we're here to attend another Quran study. It's absolutely a blessing of God that we're here to attend, and there's nothing good that we did to be here and to appreciate God and to increase our knowledge. Inshallah, I'll be reading from Surah 47, verse number 20, and to the end of it. And before we go into that, I just want to clear up a few things. This is the time of Prophet Muhammad era, and a lot of things are during his time, but a lot of things that we can learn. Basically, God is teaching us the system, how things work, and all we need to know is learn the system. If we learn the system, any situation we can apply. Instead of telling somebody what is 2 plus 2, if you teach them how to do the math, they can do it anywhere. And there are 3 categories that God is going to discuss here, which is righteous, disbelievers, and hypocrites. And you see the word believer is not one of them. That's from Surah number 2. And why? Because believer alone itself has no value in it. You have to have action involved in it. And especially in this surah, we're going to learn why action is so important. Because the first step is to become a believer, submitter, then believer. And out of the believer, either you fall into the righteousness or hypocrites. So you're bound to fall into one of these categories. Either you just flat out disbeliever, and then you're just kicked out on the side. But if you accept and you say, I believe, then you will either fall into the righteousness or the hypocrites. There's no 4th category here. And this surah has 38 verses, which is another strong signal from God that is supports the miracle of 19, which is in the middle of the surah 19. Verse number 19 is where La ilaha illallah is mentioned. Another thing to ponder upon is in this surah, 9 of the verses God is talking about the believers, 21 verses God is talking about the disbelievers and hypocrites, and 8 of the verses are mixed. So that in itself gives a very strong message about this surah. And a lot of people think about Surah Muhammad is probably him is being discussed, but to come to a shock then when you read it, it's the other way around. I mean, God is discussing some important matters. Like even a lot of people think that Surah Miraj, and I've talked to a lot of people and they said, oh, that's in Surah Miraj. There's a whole incident in it. And I said, have you read Surah Miraj? There's nothing what you have been taught, and it's completely the other story. So all these things you learn when you read the Quran, mashallah. So we'll start from verse number 20. Bismillahir-Rahmanir-Rahim. And right off the bat, God starts with exposing the hypocrites. And the verse says, those who believed said, when will a new surah be revealed? But when a straightforward surah was revealed, wherein fighting was mentioned, you would see those who harbor doubts in their hearts looking at you, as if death had already come to them. They were exposed. They were thus exposed. So, I mean, those who believe say, when will we new surah reveal? So these people, they're excited, they're happy to be submitted, they're happy to be believing in God, and they're all, yeah, this is. But what happens is when there's, the truth in itself comes out, when something God mentions that, if everything is going easy, they're happy, enjoying, and everything. When something is demanded from them, in this surah, we will learn 2 important things that was exposing fighting and charity, and these 2 things will expose the true in self. So right here, God said they were exposed, but that happens later. As we learn, God does not expose them right away. God gives them time until they really worked on their doubts and everything. But finally, God says that, as we learn in this surah, as we go on, and then God will show us that how they will be exposed. They're scared. Okay, the fighting is mentioned, so why they're scared? They're scared for their family. What's going to happen to them? Are they going to die? All these thoughts starts coming in, and this fear is natural. When we are scared, we are afraid and all that. But at the same time, we have to have trust in God. You have to have confidence in God. But if you lack confidence, so what do you need to do? You don't need to run back or slide back. We need to work on our fear. We need to work on our trust in God, The more we work on these or trust in God, the more we will get better. So here, when the straightforward verse is revealed, their fighting is mentioned. Now they have to, as we learn in Surah number 8, where the whole incident of fighting is mentioned. This Surah was sent down during the time he was in Medina, and where they had to fight. There's a whole history about it, and so how they were, when they had to actually, everything was easy, it was fine, but when they had to come out and fight, that's where they were getting exposed. So obedient, they're supposed to be obedient. They're supposed to be, yes, sir. We hear and we obey. This supposed to be the behavior that is expected from us. But again, that's they were exposed. That comes. That's my understanding in this surah is that comes later. That when everything is like there's no more hope or things like that happens. Proof of faith during Muhammad's era. So during that time, how their faith was tested, and we are not exempt from it. We have our ways. God test everybody according to their situation. So verse 21 says that obedience and righteous utterance are expected of them. If only they showed confidence in God when mobilization was called for, it would have been better for them. It is also your intention as soon as you leave, you will commit evil and mistreat your relatives. It is those who incurred a curse from God, whereby he rendered them deaf and blind. So God says obedience and righteous utterance are expected of them, and the same thing is expected from us. This is not something that one can say that I'm very obedient or this is I'm doing different. This behavior is expected. That God says that He did not create the humans. 51, 56, except to worship Him alone. So these things are expected. There's nothing you're doing new. This is expected from every creation of God, that obedience and righteous utterance. So if only they only show confidence, like in the previous verse when fighting is mentioned, they need to show confidence in God when mobilization was called for it. So amazingly, God saying they need to show confidence. I mean, how merciful God is, that God knows that, a lot of time we cannot, there's going to be fear in your heart. And it's not easy to just take the fear out and just throw it out. When something happens, you naturally going to have some emotions running inside. And like it's like we learn in one place that when angered, they forgive. As we know that when you're angry, you cannot just take the anger out of yourself and throw it. It's going to stay there. It's going to slowly take its course. But what you can do is you can forgive. And here you are feared inside, but you can control your fear. Even you cannot control, but you can show confidence in God, and eventually God will slowly take that fear out of you. And that's would have been better for them. And God that also said, it is your intention that as soon as you leave, you will commit evil and mistreat. Like when they're in gathering of prophet and they are saying yes, 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 but inside there's something else is going on in their heart. They're not, they're scared, and their intentions are different. So this is where the hypocrisy is born. You're with the believers and you say we believe, but then there's something else going in yourself, and this is where you either go this way or that way. And we're talking about hypocrites. We're not even talking about disbeliever flat out disbelieve. They have strong decision that no, we don't believe in. But these are the middle people, and these are the worst categories, and you don't want to fall into that categories. Now, of course, you don't want to go in the disbeliever. So the only option you have is that we hear and we obey. And then what happens in the result? The result is so worse that anyone who act in this way is going to fall into this. This will incur a curse from God, and where He rendered them deaf and blind. I mean, this is the worst situation you will fall into if you don't take heed, if you don't apply the system on yourself. You believe, then you obey God, then you're in the safe spot. But if you disbelieve, then you're in disbelievers. But if you say you believe but don't do what God says, then this is very much anybody will be fall into the curse, and that's where deaf, dumb, and blind. That's what the God explains in several different ways. And then let me just do, this is God's system. If you the Satan's trick is to inflict fear in people's heart. So you have two choices. You have fear. If you will follow Satan, if you act upon the fear, and he will drag more and more into your fear, and it will be just kind of take over. The fear will take over, complete your body. But if you have confidence in God and you fight your fear, and God will pull you towards Him, and then the fear will start coming down slowly. It will be high, but it's gradually going to come down, and eventually you will look at yourself that when you had fear, it's like, what happened to my fear? This is the natural process. So if you obey Satan, then the fear is going to rise. But if you obey and follow God, the fear is going to go down. This is how it is. Very simple, straightforward. And then when God says, what is your intention? A critical lesson to learn here, one of the things that it's very, very common, and this we find it ourselves, is that during the Quran studies or in the sermons or we're in a gathering, we become so emotionalized. We get like be excited. We get like, I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna change my life, and this matters. But when we leave, you have felt it so many times, and I felt it. That the feeling, the emotions, the energy starts to drain, and we go back to the same behavior. The whole purpose of coming to learning of God says, force yourself to be with those who day and night, I'm paraphrasing, worship God alone. Why is that? Because so you get energized, but then take the energy and apply it in ourselves. If you're going to go back, if we're going to go back to the same routine where we don't change our life, then what good is any Quran study or anything will do to us? That's a very critical thing to understand and learn. And another critical lesson is that we need to take action while we are not in that section. This verse number 20. And once this thing is applied on our life, then there's very little hope left before this happens. Like if you take some medicine, before the medicine takes over yourself, whether it's good or bad, you have time to take action. If you delay too long, then if a curse is applied on us, or deaf and blind, then there's pretty much. You are like, the hope is very, very little afterward. Nobody else can help you after that. And then here God saying, study the Quran. Verse number 24. Why do they not study the Quran carefully? Do they have locks on their minds? Surely those who slide back after the guidance has been manifested to them, the devil has enticed them and led them on. This is because they say to those who hated what God has sent down, we will obey you in certain matters. God fully knows their secret hypocrisies. God is asking two questions here. Why do they not study the Quran carefully? Do they have locks in their mind? The most gracious, the most wise, who knows everything, is asking a question. Of course, he knows the answer completely better than anybody else. He knows, fully aware of anybody's innermost thoughts. But this question is for us to ponder upon. Why is that? Why don't people study the Quran carefully? Now, we have the miracle of 19 and so much more. Do they have locks in their mind? And as we learned from the last part, is that you render them deaf and blind. So where that locks come from? God doesn't. It's my understanding you will not have lock in the beginning. You will have open access to everything. The lock part and deaf and blind and all that comes later, until you have completely have no faith in God, and you want to do what you want to do, and all that stuff happens. There's a system, there's a process take place. It happens later, but sometimes it's too late. When lock is already applied, then it's pretty scary situation to even think that maybe you cannot even study anymore the Quran. You have the Quran is taken away. You just have paper and ink left, which you can read, but you cannot understand. God says, surely those slide back after the guidance has been manifested. See, this is where you learn the locks does not happen right away. This is after God explains the Quran. Guidance have manifested. So once the guidance comes to you, you take the guidance and you follow it. But if the guidance comes to you, but if you still have other doubts and you still can't let go, you do things that you were doing or whatever it is, then that's where the law comes. And why all this happens? Because the devil has enticed them. So here you have two messages come from. God is giving you his message, and devil is enticing you with fear in the previous verse that we learned, and many other things that he can entice you. And then he will lead them on. This is the whole system God is teaching us. Though this happened with them, but this is very much blueprints for our life, that he will lead you on. And who do you follow? If you're going to follow God, then God will take you. And also swear too, we learn that God will guide you from darkness to light, and the devil they take you from light to darkness. Very, very much straightforward. And this is when surely who slide back. So pretty much the whole system is God is explained in this is verse number 25. And why all this happening? Because they say to those who hated what God has sent down. So see, there's those people, they disbelieve and they didn't like what God has sent down. So this is another category. That's a disbeliever category, and you are in the middle. So, and what are they saying? This is where the whole problem, one of the major problem generates, is we will obey you in certain matters. God is fully knows their secret and conspiracies. So, I mean, this is a very dangerous place to be, because God wants us to obey Him alone. If anytime you have any other source beside God, the matter of religion, you have another God beside you. It could be anything, and when you are, and why they want to obey them in certain matters, they don't want to let go their, they have like suppose there the prophet came to Medina, and then people are becoming believers, and their people are becoming disbelievers, and there are these people they are with prophet, but at the same time they don't want to let go because they are afraid. There's so many reasons. Could be their social gatherings, their connections with them, their family members, they don't want to they don't want to make them mad, so they're hanging in the middle. And this is the whole problem generates when you don't take the firm side with God, and when then that will take starts to take over you and lead you on. I think I have this little. So this is like the believers here. They're happy, enjoying, and this is the disbeliever. They hated what God has sent down, and so these are these people. They have question marks and all this stuff there. They want to keep them happy too, and they want to keep these people happy too. So and this is where the hypocrite's born. This is where it comes from. I mean, these disbelievers are at least better than these, because we learn, because these people are in the worst part of the hell, but they're not even any good. If they decide to believe, then they have to go through this process too. God will test them through. God tests everybody, but there's no point of testing a disbeliever because they flat out rejected it. But God probably go put people through tests who say that we believe, and so they want to obey God, but they also want to do something else. The other, I mean, we can easily fall into this category as a mirror. We might end up seeing ourselves falling. Others people's believe in something. We have family, we have someone else, and they said we will kick you out. You are no more welcome here if you cannot participate in our this and that. And you say, okay, well, oh, what the heck? This is just a little thing, but then these little things can lead to bigger things, and all of a sudden you find out yourself in that middle area. And then what happens is, this is the worst place. And what happens, you may get locked out of Quran. All these things can happen, on top of each other. So let's go to the next verse. It's verse number 27. How will it be for them when the angels put them to death? They will beat them on their faces and their rear ends. This is because they followed what angered God and hated the things that pleases Him. Consequently, He has nullified their works. So, from the previous verse, it appears that God is still talking about the hypocrites, and God is telling us, and they probably reading the Quran too, that if this stuff was going on at that time, that at least they can read and see what mistakes are they making. Similarly, we can read and we can see what mistakes we are making, so we are not in that situation. So when the death of angels shows up to take them, imagine, you can just picture in your head, somebody's being beaten on their face and their rear ends. and not by another human being. They're beaten by the angels, who have far more power and far more abilities. How would that be? I mean, we cannot even imagine how what kind of beating was that will that be, because God says, because they followed but angered God. And you can imagine, we cannot even say, okay, this thing may not anger God, this might, who are we to decide what would anger God or not? As we know that if we disobey God in general terms, that will anger God. And one of the worst thing would be idol worship, because idol worship is not forgiven. And if you are following another source, if you're following your social gathering or anything that goes against God's teaching, then that will anger God, because this is, you're in a very red zone. and and then hated the thing that please him. So these people, what they did, uh, that angered God, and hated the things that pleases. Yeah. So right here, I mean, pretty much God is explained right here. Uh, you know, you go down that road, you may intentionally do it, you may not realize it, but gradual change, we may not even feel it. Something small, we may think that, so we have to always be watch out for like small things that can lead us to the bigger things. In the beginning, maybe they maybe feel nothing, maybe something that we better avoid it, because nobody becomes a bad person overnight. It takes gradual. So you think something will, oh, I can do that, that's not bad, and then once you get used to it, then you say, oh, then you go to the next step, then your next step. It's the ladder effect. And before you know, you end up on the wrong side. So we need to follow this verse the completely the opposite. So then the verse would read something like that: for the righteous people, they followed but pleases God, and hated what angered God. So that's what the behavior we should be applying in an opposite. And then what God says, whatever they have done, all the righteous work, whatever, no matter what it is, will be nullified. Imagine if you were a submitter of someone, but you angered God. What would happen? You stayed up night of destinies, you fasting of your months, and all your righteous works, your charities you've been giving, and all that stuff will be nullified. I mean, would you even want to put yourself in a slight risk of something that might nullify your work? you know then let's go to the next verse. And verse number 29, God says that, did those who harbor doubts in their hearts think that God will not bring out their evil thoughts? If he will, we can expose them for you, so that you can recognize them just by looking at them. However, you can recognize them by the way they talk. God is fully aware of all your works. So this is like the middle stage, like where they have the message, but God does not expose them yet. And and those who harbor they have doubts in their hearts, uh, and they need to work on their doubts. Similarly, if we have any doubts, we need to work on our doubts. That God is asking, like in question, that those who have doubts, they think that God will not bring out the evil thoughts. Eventually, God will bring out the evil thoughts. They cannot harbor, they cannot hide it inside. For their social environment, maybe when they were with prophet, and they want to hide their doubts in their heart. But if they don't work on their doubts, what happens eventually? We have even similar kind of incidents that's taken place with even Messenger of the Covenant, where eventually people's doubt come out, and he says many places that people, how they were leaving, as when the more and more information is coming, and how people abandon the ship, things like that. So similar as things happen with this, and on the course of pretty much everybody's life, if you keep the doubts in your heart, then what happens is eventually God will bring it out. God already knows our thoughts. God already knows what our evil thoughts are, what our doubts are. It is for us to learn. To even somebody whose thoughts have brought out, I mean, even you have time to repent and work on your doubts before it is too late. And for these people, they could have read these verses and see if they are falling. Of course, we can feel our doubts, and then God has a whole system and plan how to work on these doubts. If He will, we can expose them for you. So God is straightforward, talking to the prophet, that That if God wills, He can expose them for you. Very easy, but God wants to hide their doubts for. There's a very, very important reason. That's my understanding why God does not want to expose them. Maybe not yet, because if they imagine there's prophet and there's all this gathering and people, and there are people they have doubts, and God, if God exposed them, now they're exposed, right? So out of social pressure or feeling embarrassment and all that, they may you know be with you, or whatever decision, but that will affect their decision. See, this coming to submission is completely voluntary, out of your heart. You come to God with your logic and thinking and understanding the message, and this is how we need to come to, not by pressure of any source, any kind of pressure. So if they were embarrassed, and out of embarrassment, if they come to prophet and come to God that, oh, okay, this and that, that will interfere with their decision. So God wants to hide their evil thoughts. They can work on it, and God giving them clue and all that until the decision is made, and that's when their evil thoughts are exposed. And like, no, you didn't work on it, and you get further and further away from the religion. Satan leads you on, and he entices you, and all this stuff falling in the right place. Masha Allah, this is amazing system God is in place. But God is giving a clue to the prophet that however you can recognize them by the way they talk. So there's a lot of clues that will show somebody who the way they talk, and that will, even for us too, we have certain clues that somebody the way they talk, you can pretty much have understanding where they stand, with the in a religion submission or anything. We can have some kind of profile against someone, that where they are. We can, obviously you don't want to bring them out and talk about it, you or this, that, that's what we blame, but we can have a general imagination about somebody, how the way they talk, how they maybe are. God is fully aware of all your works. He knows 100% everything what you do. When you have doubts in your heart, that is evil thoughts. This is very, very straightforward. Doubts is equal to evil thoughts. The evil thoughts will give birth to doubts. So you need to stop these evil thoughts and the evil behavior. The more righteous work you're going to start doing, the more it's going to kill the doubts. So this is where the roots are, and this is where the product is. Very simple, straightforward, mashallah. And where the end up is, we are dealing with extremely serious business here, our life forever. And while you're even in this world, your minds can be locked out and all that. Okay, so inshallah, the next verse says that we will certainly put you to the test in order to distinguish those among you who strive and steadfastly persevere. We must expose your true qualities. Those who disbelieve and repel from the path of God and oppose the messenger after, see the word after the guidance has been manifested to them, will never hurt God in the least. Instead, He nullifies their works. So this is system. We will certainly put you to test. It applies to everyone. The test is mandatory. When you get the message, either you can fall onto the right side, the disbelievers, but if you believe, then you have to go through the whole test process, which in end product, you will fall into the righteous people, or you will fall into the hypocrite people. And test is barely to see, do you really want to worship God alone? Is your basic terms, that. But if you're not sincere with God, mashallah, God, the system that we learn is God gives you enough chances. God gives you enough information to make your decision. But if God may, if you want to read the Quran, God may, you have a hard time learning Quran, He will expose you something very simple, straightforward words, which you will read and will understand. But you still obey the disbelievers, or someone which is not with the Quran, then they will be leading you on, and you will be further. God will be saying to you that if you want to listen to them, then why are you doing in my class? Just go follow them. Like, for example, somebody reads the verse, coming from traditional Islam, and they read the second last verse in Surah number 2, where God says the believer, they don't distinguish between the messengers. Very straightforward verse. But when you read to talk to the people, they will say, well, it means that you obey, you believe in every prophet and messenger. But it doesn't say that. It says that differentiate. Like la nufarriqu baina ahadim. Like there's no you treat them equally. This is the command from God, right? It doesn't mention believing or not believing. Amana Rasul bima unzila. Like this is what you believe, what has God sent down. But here God is talking about no distinguish between the messengers. So one thing that you can completely understand, but then you are told that no, this means this, but your mind is telling you the other way. God is telling you is right. So here you can start departing. You're listening to them, but while saying to God will follow you in certain matters and will follow you in certain matters. So you're on two different boats, and you cannot go on two different boats for too long. Your one foot is in this boat and one foot is in this boat, and they're going apart. Eventually you will fall into this or this or in the middle. So you have to have a firm stand with God that whatever God says, and God is the one who's going to make you understand. So if you understand God, you say, yes, God, I'll obey you. I will not make any distinction from now on. Then God will make you exposed to more verses, more higher and higher learning, and this is how you gradually learn more, and you will be going away from the negative side. It's a very straightforward system, though this a lot of these things are happening in time of the prophet, but these things are very much we can learn, and the test is mandatory, and in our life it's like a boot camp, and it's not, as the messenger says, that the admission test is very exacting. It's not easy, but what you have is you have full support of God. You have, like, how these the NASCARs and all this, they do a high level of training, but what they have, and they're racing, they have full support. They have medical and everything, all the doctors, everything, and they equip their car and everything. So when you're training, you have full support. Similarly, when you're when you go into the admission test, you have to have faith in God that anything that will happen to you will not be permanent. God may test you through money, your family, loss of life, or anything like that. God will test your fear, maybe. So, however, it will depend probably on the based on, and the faster, the harder you work out during your test time, the quicker it will be. You prove to God that yes, you alone we worship. This is the whole test. Is during the tough times, you still gonna worship God alone. Because a lot of time, then something start happening, and then somebody might say, "Oh, I was better before." When as soon as I say submit to God alone, I mean, think bad things start happening. That's why, because this is the test. You will go through all this, and eventually you will come out on the other side. And then when you come out the other side, then when you realize, and you will say, it is so much worth it. And you would say that I would have done it over and over again. I mean, this was so much worth it. The test was nothing. It actually purified me. It had changed my life. I became such a better person after that test is done. I mean, had I not gone through the test, I may have been still be person, angry person, not happy person. But all these, even the test, you know what? It teaches us a lot. The tough time we go through, it refines our life. It's like the gold that the diamond that comes out of the earth. They looks like rock. It has to go through the purifying process to come out. Even the gasoline you put in a car, they don't come out like that. It has to go through so many refining process. Similarly, our soul has to go through that. But if you give up so soon, then you may fail the test, or the test will be long. You have to go through. You want to go through the test long, so you strive your best to get out of the test, and you will have some certain, I guess, clues that maybe if the test is over, things may start changing in your life. Because once the test is over, then the happy life starts right after that. Oh, you who believe, verse 33. Oh, you who believe, you shall obey God and obey the messenger. Otherwise, all your works will be nullified. All your works will be in vain. Those who disbelieve and repel from the path of God, then die as disbeliever, God will never forgive them. In this verse number 33, God is talking to those who have believed. I mean, these are the people that came to prophet and they said, we believe. Very well apply to us. And then you shall obey God and the messenger. So uh, if you don't do that, this is expected. Like we in the previous verses we read, the obedience and righteous utterance is expected. Similarly, this is This is where it comes from. When you obey God and the messenger, that's what's going to happen. You righteous work and utterance is expected. Obedience is expected from us. Otherwise, all your works will be in vain. I mean, no matter what have you done, you have made a hospital for poor people, or you have done anything, any righteous work you have done, it's not gonna benefit you if you don't obey God and the messenger. And messenger in itself is we know that messenger, literally the meaning of messenger is who deliver the message. It's like saying, like a city says that suppose you have to obey the law and obey the police officer. So they're not two different things. You obey, city makes the law, and the police officer is the one enforcing the law. He's not making his own laws. So it's a very much same thing, which in which they said the messenger obey the God and obey the messenger is the one delivering the message to you. It's coming from God. It's not. He's not bringing. He's not changing anything. It's absolutely coming from God. So this basically it's a one thing. A lot of people get confused that obeying God and obeying the message two different things. So you obey God, and whatever you learn about the messenger, you do that. I mean, messengers will not preach something out of their own, and we learn in the Quran that God clearly says anything you say out of your own, God says will grab you from your like from your like your artery or something that will drag you to hell. It's a very scary words for the messenger to even consider saying something. So they will not. They will run away from saying anything out of their own. And otherwise, I mean, this is a very dangerous place. Would you want all your work? Imagine you work in the company and come to find out all your earning has gone to waste. People, when they lose stocks and everything, some people they suicide because they cannot handle it because they work all their life, and when they come to find out they can retire and there's no money in the bank. This is, I mean, imagine just being robbed or somebody take your money. It feels so bad, and that's just a small amount, but all your works will be in vain. And then God says those who disbelieve and repel from the path of God and then die as a disbeliever, God will never forgive them. So very clear understanding here is that so three categories. This is from believers, you get righteous or hypocrites, and this is the third category, those who are disbelieving. They have firm stand with disbelief. They're on the one side, and they're repelling. They're angry. They don't like it, but they don't, it's understanding their minds are not locked yet because they have not gone through the test, and their firm stand, their mind is open. And that's why, because if they die as a disbeliever, so they have time until their death, they can change their mind and they can come to the religion. Because somebody who say I believe and then and become hypocrite, and God seals their minds and their brain and their eyes, and they're locked out of the Quran. Imagine, I mean, there's really very little hope left. But those who have firm stand with the disbelief, they still have the door open until they can come anytime, but they have to go through the refining process too. So this is my understanding is that, if they still until the death they have time, they can, before all things start thing happening, and God says He will not forgive them. So there's really no good thing about disbeliever, because God will not forgive them. So the only option you have left is to obey God. Masha Allah. And then let's go to the verse 35. Therefore you shall not waver and surrender in pursuit of peace, for you are guaranteed victory, and God is with you. He will never waste your efforts. This worldly life is no more than play and vanity. But if you believe and lead a righteous life, He will reward you without asking you for any money. If He asked you for money to the extent of creating hardship to you, you might have become stingy and your hidden evil might be exposed. Very straightforward things here. When you go into a test, this is basically in one form God is talking the test, that therefore you shall not be and surrender in pursuit of pursuit of peace. So when somebody who comes out of the admission test, their happiness and it starts now and forever. So they enter that peace world right here by living in this world. So before that, they're going to the refining process. So God says, do not waver and surrender during this time. And and God is saying that for you are guaranteed victory. This is, God is assuring us if you stay strong and do not surrender, then you absolutely will come out as a victor. You will enter that God's kingdom, and God is with you. You know, this is the biggest assurance telling you God that during the process, I mean, during your whole life, God is with you. So you know, imagine you going through some tough times in your life, or you're going through a jungle or something. You know, having a confidence, like suppose there's a Superman or Spider or some like those Marvel characters is with you, and they're like walking next to you. You'll be like feeling comfortable. You say, "Oh, if anything happens, he can take care of me." Imagine when you're going through this tough time. You know, just remember God is with you. That should put a smile on our face, like something like, you know, you're close to you, someone loved one will leave you. Okay, if you're gonna be a submitter, I cannot be with you. So say, okay, fine, we'll depart from here. You know, but you have to remember that God is with you. You should be smiling should be on your face, that God will, God is with me after this. You know, God will bless me with far better. Even of some of the messengers we learn in the Quran, that how they went through their process and God, how God blessed them, like Job, for example. And God is telling us this is just a play. This is not real. This is this illusion. What is in this world? It's not even real. Even science now is science tells us that basically the way this world is structured, all these atoms, there's so much gap in it. You never touch anything. Like you pick up a glass, you didn't, or mug, you didn't even pick, you didn't touch it. There's so much gap. This is this completely illusion. Whatever we see, it's not there actually. Because 99.99% of the matter is empty. So how God is telling us the same thing. This is just a play in vanity, it's illusion. But if you believe and lead a righteous life, this is expected from us over and over. We read that. When you believe and you have to live a righteous life, then God says He will reward you without asking. And then verse 37 is God is telling you that God still hasn't exposed some of the people right here, because money is being asked. And the next verse we learn that money is being asked. God will invite you to expend money, but not to the extent. God knows where the limits are. So if God would ask some people who have not have still have some doubts in their heart, to the extent where their doubt will be exposed, they'll say, okay, we're not going to give that much money, and they're going to walk out. So they will expose themselves. So God is the most merciful, giving them still time. God is not asking to the extent that will create hardship for you. So if He asks you money to extent that will cause you hardship, then you will be exposed. You will become stingy. You will be like, oh, I cannot do that. You know, and your hidden evil might be exposed. Remember the word evil. We in the beginning we the study we learned evil thought comes from the doubts, and this will be exposed. So God will ask you money in a way where you are tested, but not to the point where your back is broken and then you are like, oh, you know, you are exposed. This is we learn how merciful God is, because in this verse right here, it's verse 38. You are invited to spend in the cause of God, but some of you turn stingy. The stingy are stingy towards their own souls. God is rich while you are poor. And the heading for this continue this verse is warning for the Arabs. If you turn away, He will substitute other people in your place, and they will not be like you. And the footnote says that the Quran was given to the Arabs in their language for 1400 years, but they clearly rejected it and refused to believe that it is complete. They fabricated Hadith and Sunnah. So, I mean, clearly this surah starts off with denying all this and only saying that the Quran is, I mean, the word of God. But is there really clearly rejected? So here's God is inviting them to spend in the cause of God, you know, in a certain amount or however it may be, where they are being still tested. But even at that time, we can know there's happy people, they're strong, but there are some they're a little bit weak. They will happily spend. Maybe they're working, and there are more weaker people, where even with this amount of money, they're stingy. But some of them turn stingy. Even that little amount, they will start. God didn't ask you to the extent where it will be too much. God is asking you much less money, but happy people, they will gladly do anything. And there are the middle people, between these three, they are like, you know, they will spend, but they're still stingy. They may have to work, but there are some that are very weak. And even with this little money, they will be exposed. So people were being exposed, but going through the purifying process. God says, God is rich while you are poor. The stingy are stingy toward their own soul. And why is God is saying that? Whenever you give money to someone, a poor or charity, anything, you're not giving to anybody. You are giving it to yourself. As we know that, uh, this body is not. That's not we are. This is part of the earth. We're gonna leave it. This is just a vehicle for us to work through this world. What our self is our soul. So when you give money to a poor, literally you're giving the money to yourself, to your soul, to yourself. But what money you spend on yourself, that is you spending on somebody else. This is not you. So whatever I'm spending on this body is I'm spending on this earth or something else. But whatever I'm giving out, that is going to my soul. It's very straightforward. So when you are stingy, you don't want to spend on yourself. That's mean you're being stingy to yourself. You understand the reverse system? Or you spend it on yourself, that's when you're giving it to somebody else, like somebody who's spending all their money on someone else, but he living in a little like he's homeless, and all the money he's earning, he's spending. This is in a literally in a reverse process. This is what happens. Those people they spend on themselves. It's not actually they're spending on themselves, and God is saying He's the rich while we are poor. And we have to understand this process. I mean, poor is God is giving in a small word. I mean, the true reality is we are like absolutely nothing. We didn't even exist. The God has brought us into the existence. We should be more and more humble and reverence to God that He has even created us and blessed us with us all these things. And this is the mercy that God doesn't ask us too much. He only asks us what is easy. I mean, just think about it. You even pay taxes. Depending, some people pay 20%, 30% taxes. God only asks us 2.5%, the minimum. This. I mean, how merciful God is. What if God says that every penny, every money you earn, you have to give 75%. You have to give out of charity. You can only keep 25%. Imagine that. That will be coming to this words that to the extent, then a lot of people will be, be exposed. But God is asking only smaller amounts. Where if you can't even do that, I mean, out of the 24 hours, how much God is asking us for to do contact prayers? These are like required things. If we can't even do that, that would be very, very scary things today. Okay. And then the last thing I want to just mention is that we should reverence God. As we know, some submitters and some strong submitters even slide back. We need to always have that fear in ourselves that we know what if we become something, if we feel something like we slide back in some way, and God may lock us out. So inshallah, at this point I'll stop here, and we can discuss these verses or other verses and open for uh, discussion and questions, inshallah. Thank you.
Masha Allah, thanks, Adam. Great
Masha Allah,
study.
thank you.
Praise God.
Mashallah, praise God. Thank you.
So I have a question. You mentioned about the messenger, something about the archery. You said
Oh,
if you,
no, something. Where there's somewhere verse God says that if you say something from your own, we will grab you from your throat or something and drag you to hell. Something, some similar in sense that if messenger or the prophet would say something on his own. Isn't that word somewhere?
well, there's one that says we would have punished him severely.
Severely, yeah. I mean, I think I read it in the other traditional translation that they will. They even put it very, very bad words that they will grab you from your throat and drag you to hell, something like that, in traditional translation. But I
Right. It
mean,
says in Surah 69,
mhm,
Muhammad forbidden from issuing
yes,
any religious teachings. Had he uttered any other teachings, we would have punished him. We would have
severely,
stopped
yes,
the revelations to him. None of
yes,
you could have helped him. This is a reminder for the righteous.
yes, 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 yes. That's the stop
Mm,
the revelation. That part. Yes.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I didn't have. I mean, I was recalling from the previous translation that I read, and
Mm-hmm.
then it's coming out. Thank you for mentioning.
Oh, no problem. Yeah, I mean, I wanted to mention about the hypocrites. I mean, a lot of times this is a very unpleasant subject for a lot of people, and they're not comfortable exploring this subject because that means that they may have to, you know, give up certain friendships if those people are hypocrites, for
Mm.
example, and this may lead to some conflicts and whatnot, but or they're simply under denial that these people do not exist, and they even try to almost completely like they're completely like blindsided by this part of the Quran, and they just completely try to ignore the verses about hypocrites, or they just put hypocrites in one certain category. For example, they believe that, okay, hypocrites are these people who will just be like, give the wrong shahada, for example. But then they believe that people who, for example, it's a common one, that they say like people who pray like us and believe like us, they're our brothers and sisters, quote unquote, But we know that these verses that we're reading, God is telling us and that they're hypocrites, and God says you can recognize by them by the way they talk. Now, when God says that, of course, there's many places in the Quran where those descriptions are very refined and very clear on what they say, what the hypocrites say, what their thoughts are. You know, it doesn't necessarily mean that like they may slip and they may say wrong things, for example, but they would probably also do things contrary to the Quran. For example, they may appear to be righteous, but then in their own lives, let's say, they're doing all kinds of mischievous things, or like, doing illegitimate stuff and all that kind of stuff. And we know that too. However, I mean, there's so many things that the hypocrites do. For example, we see in the Quran that God gives descriptions. For example, when it comes to mobilization in the cause of God, they're more scared of the people, and they will look for excuses and all that kind of stuff. So these are all ways and means through which we will recognize them. I mean, there's a whole list, and God wouldn't put them in the Quran if we didn't really need them. I mean, the another footnote, the Messenger of the Covenant, he has explained how he said the hypocrites sit among the believers, pretend to be our brothers and sisters, and then they go on and they spread their poisonous doubts and among people. So these are the most dangerous people, and these are the people that will be committed to the lowest pit of hell, because these are the people that will cause the most, or will try to cause the most harm. When these are the people that will try to make the religion crooked, and they will try to repel the people from the path of God this way. I mean, for example, we see the hypocrites. What we're reading about the hypocrites at the time of Muhammad, right? And we know these hypocrites existed during the time of Muhammad. And when Muhammad passed away, what they did, they changed the religion, right? They added the two false verses in the Quran and started the war, and ended up killing people from Muhammad's family and everybody else. And so these are really dangerous people, and a consequence of not wanting to recognize these people is that you will befriend them, and you will end up becoming just like them. So it's in our best interest, and we have to be thankful that God is teaching us about the hypocrites, so we can protect ourselves, basically.
Yeah, Masha Allah, you made a very good point. This is that just like the Prophet's family, and then to expose the hypocrites, because they're very dangerous people, and God giving us clue how you can recognize them. So, but otherwise, if we didn't know, we could be befriending them, and we could be like, they can affect us. Mashallah, this is a very, very good point. One other thing that I can also see is that, remember, we are talking about the Eid al-Fitr and all that stuff, all the Islamic traditions that are not Islamic. And if we have families, and then to make them happy, and if we celebrate something that is maybe angering God, we don't know, and then and we are following in that verse that in certain matters we will obey you. so we're obeying them in certain matters, we can very well fall into that categories. Mashallah. Thank you.
Yeah, Assalamu Alaikum. Yeah, majority of the submitters and many communities, they don't want to talk about hypocrites. Um, and they are actually in denial that they even exist among submitters. They never, some will say, no, 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 it's okay. Um, but then God has different commandments how to be, how to behave towards them, even though they would sit among you and all that. And God wants the believers to be not befriend them, be harsh and stern with them, so they, in a way, make them uncomfortable, not to make them feel they're very accepted and, oh, we're brethren, we're all the same, we follow the same path. But then, if everyone was following the same path, then who are hypocrites? So even in the beginning of the Quran, the categories of three kinds of people. So they are people who exist, and they exist in every community, and there are clear commandments how the believers should be behaving towards them. Because this is beyond me that how certain communities absolutely they don't care about this. Um, like for example, how hypocrites are exposed by God. God puts them. Obviously, we all are put through tests. To God has to bring out everybody's true convictions, and when these people are failed certain tests and fail to recognize God's clear commandments, or they find something which is unquranic, attribute lies to God, bring up or fabricate, uh, something other than Quran. Either it's their understanding or something they would just completely innovate and make it part of religion. So that's how they are exposed. Otherwise, how else they are exposed? They won't come to you and tell them, oh, by the way, I'm a hypocrite, you know. So once you recognize them, and they're persistent on their ways and they're doing this, then you have to follow that commandment. You do not make them feel that I am your friend or you're part of my congregation and all that. So harsh and stern meaning you're not being cozy with them, you're not being warm with them as your brother and or sister in religion or faith. So you have to treat them as God has commanded. Simple as that. Whether you like it or not, this is a commandment. And people find it hard. No, but then they care about their own reputation. Oh, but I'm a very compassionate and nice person. You know, I cannot do that. For me, everybody is the same. It's they are responsible for what they do. Yes, they are responsible, but why is God giving you these commandments? So people have to realize that they cannot pick and choose what suits them and their lifestyle or their apparent behavior. Your behavior has to be your love and hate should be just for God towards the people. Yeah.
So, I think it reminds me of the verse where God says, the hypocrites worry that a surah will be revealed exposing what is in their hearts. So some of the people might be hypocrites themselves, so they don't want people to explore more about hypocrites because it will reveal their own hypocrisy, so they don't want it to be discussed.
Exactly.
So,
Exactly. So that's how all the compromises start. I'm going to
mm,
compromise on this. I'm going to neglect this. And that's what devil is always looking for, that one small hole, like God has given the example of knitters. How somebody you would knit something day and night, and a little hole is left in the knitting. You pull that hole, and all the knitting is gone in a second. No matter how many days you have prepared that sweater or scarf, or it took a long time, it looks nice and solid, but there's just one hole, one of the stitch got dropped in between, and that's where Satan can do that. It just can unravel the whole thing. We have to be solid in our conviction and faith. We all have weaknesses, personal weaknesses, and let's not get them confused with attributing lies to God, making fabrications. And sometimes we can't, somebody might not be able to control their anger at certain times. Somebody could be just, you know, a waster, and they have to take care of those personal, shortcomings, and strive to become a better person. But then it's a whole different field where people are saying, okay, this, they're all, you can go and eat food from a place of idol worship, or food dedicated to idols, right? God says that you can. Or things like circumcision, or other things. So that's where, that's a whole different category. That's not a weakness. That means you are, um, there is a curtain, like the lock put on your understanding, whether it could be just one thing or many things. That's a sign. That's a sign. Why cannot you understand this? Like somebody saying on the forum that 10 years before the day of judgment, we'll be resurrected, all of us will be running around on this earth. Like, where did that come from? Obviously from Satan. So Satan will just give you one idea to run with because he knows your weakness. And that's your test. And your ego says, no, but I'm right. God is guiding me like this. Why can't you see? But it goes against the teachings of, would go against the Quran's teaching. It would not resonate with the rest of the Quran. It will go against the explanation and teachings of the messenger. So you will see all the signs. So if you kill your ego, you will be able to see the truth. But if your ego says, no, I am understanding it right, I don't need to see anything else, and those people get stuck in their disbelief and then eventually lose their chances of guidance because they fail to repent and reform.
exactly.
Yeah, mashallah. A lot of times we find ourselves, like, for example, the traditional is the Eid al-Zuha, where they sacrifice animal, and sometimes we're like sitting in some place and they were talking about, so you gonna sacrifice this, or something. So a lot, one of the submitter was just saying, I know I'm not doing anything. I said, why do you say that? God, this is not a practice. You should firmly say that you don't believe in sacrificing. Why do you making excuse for them that, oh no, it's okay? Why you taking the weak path to so that they don't get upset, they don't kick you out of their social environment. So you tell them exactly what it is, that no, there's no mention of that. Only during the Hajj is the one you do the sacrifice. Other than that, you don't sacrifice animal. If you're doing sacrifice animal, then you're following another source, mashallah. I think that's what I think. If you can clarify me on that. Yeah, Masha Allah, how you say that the knitting of this, the wool that you make, So my mom used to make those sweaters, and sometimes you find a loophole, and as a little kid, you just destroy our mom's work, and we'll just play with it and pull all the sweater out. I remember that. You keep putting the thread, it's gonna keep coming out, and all of a sudden, the
Yeah,
whole thing's destroyed, and my mom will get upset. What you did, all my work. So this is
exactly.
how, yeah,
Like you knit and you knit, it takes you long time.
right,
A solid knitting, and that is solid knitting if it goes all the way to. If one stitch is dropped, like I have knitted myself quite a bit, and if one stitch gets dropped in between, that used to happen when I was learning in the beginning. Wouldn't notice that. Oh no, what is that? That hole there. Oh, you didn't realize a stitch got dropped in between somewhere. And
right,
that is, you just pull that and everything is gone. And how weird is that? And how, subhanallah, how God has given that example,
right.
in the Quran. Imagine, subhanallah. It's perfect. God's analogies are so amazing that you want to cry sometimes. Like,
Mashallah.
subhanallah, how this an analogy is so amazing. Like, how God says He does not shy away from any kind of example or words. Praise be to God. Subhanallah. Yeah. It's just like all your works are gone. In
All my
the
works.
something you built for ages. Like for example, you were on the right path for a long time, so much hardship, so much work put into it. And then you compromised somewhere, you know, and forgot about it. But that is not gonna leave you. Your whole structure after that is going uh, not on solid grounds. The structure has a crack now. So it's really, like sometimes we do make mistakes and, we get a wrong understanding and we stick to it. But we have to, as soon as we realize, we need to keep pondering upon it because we would, and we do make mistakes on understandings or something. But then we have to kill our ego as soon as we realize, no, 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 I was wrong. But it's the ego, it prevents people from acknowledging their mistakes. But then after that, if you move forward, with one crack in your building, you move forward with that. No matter what you build after that, all you need is that you left that crack somewhere, and Satan is gonna use that against you and is pull you from somewhere you would not even notice what happened. It is because that something you forgot to reflect upon and correct it. Um, yeah, it's a slippery slope, my friend. It is a big one.
Yeah, mashallah. I think twice God says after we manifested them the guidance. Once you get explained and then you understand, then even you, I think I would say that even you come to the conclusion of some matter where you think you're falling right in the middle. Okay, maybe it's not. So I would probably take the safest route and obey God. Like you think maybe God say that or maybe not. I think if you be on the safe side, like whenever we travel or we do something, plan something, we take the safer route. We say maybe this will work. Maybe let's take this one, even if it's longer, but it's more safer. So I think that kind of attitude also helps a lot, mashallah.
Yeah, mashallah.
So I also wanted to comment on, studying the Quran carefully, and as you said, God is telling us that we should study the Quran carefully. And most people don't even study it, let alone studying it carefully. I mean, they don't They don't know what the Quran says. They just read it like parrots, without even understanding what it's talking about, you know. And this verse is telling us that, you know, it has to be read carefully. I mean, you can't read a book carefully without reading it in a language that you understand and knowing what it's telling you, you know. So people just recite it like meaningless for just, you know, it's blessings of just the reading the words. It just doesn't mean anything, and that's why people do not gain any guidance from it. I remember this one time when, well, before was really a submitter, but I had started reading the Quran. You know, this one guy in my neighborhood, you know, he was like, he came to me and he was boastfully, like he's so proud. He's like, you know, today I you know, finished the whole Quran, you know, like he was a hafiz or something. You know, it's like, do you understand what the Quran says? He's like, no, but he says I read it for, because there's so many blessings and stuff, you know. And that's what most people believe, that, you know, they, a lot of them, like, imagine like how they even know the Quran by heart, a lot of them, but they don't even know what it's saying. And it's such a sad thing that they spent all this time trying to memorize it. And even those that have memorized it, there's people that would understand like the words. Then comes to the second point, which we talked about, was that they're locked, you know. I mean, they do have, still have locks on their minds, where, you know, there are people that are insincere. They're blocked from understanding the Quran. I mean, this, we know obviously about those people who are Arabs, for example. You know, it's written in their native language, but they have no access to the actual Quran, and they use the Quran, you know, to commit the most horrendous crimes. You know, so Quran is such an amazing book that if you're sincere, you know, this book will guide you and make you more sincere. And if you're a wicked soul, I mean, it will actually increase your transgression and wickedness. I mean, this is what we see Quran does to a hypocrite, right? A hypocrite reads the Quran and he does the most evil things, and then he justifies it with the Quran. But on the other hand, if someone's a believer, he can really use this Quran to augment his guidance, to augment his faith, to augment his understanding, and get closer to God. But at the same time, you know, we see the most wicked things people do, including, you know, killing their children and whatnot. You know, they do that in the name of religion and justifying that, believe it or not, with the Quran.
Yeah, the book of Sijin and Elayin.
Mm,
It works both ways. For wicked, it becomes the book of Sijin, right? They use it. Even people use it certain things for the sorcery and stuff. You know, they kind of, oh my gosh,
mm,
yeah, like twist things and
mm.
unreal.
Yeah, and then they write the Quran backwards.
Yeah, weird things. I don't know what they do. One person I know, and so she would use these initials and initials of Quran and do something with that. I don't know how,
Hmm.
what kind of ideas they get from their jinns
Hmm.
to, be so blasphemous and all that. No matter what they're doing, obviously, they're so messed up in head that jinn is telling them. But they think they're doing the right thing, right? They're using Quran. They have so much power.
Hmm.
They give themselves so much power in their mind.
I remember before I became a submitter, I used to see this one person, you know, and then this somebody came up to him. He's like, you know, he was like Sufi, but he was like the leader of the imam of the mosque, and he was doing these things with the initials and stuff. You know, he's like, you know, and like I didn't know really, like I was pretty naive at the time. So I would just go to him, and he would tell me like zikr and stuff to do, you know. So one time I was sitting there with him, and then this one guy comes up there. He's like, you know, I can't have a child and this and that. You know, he's like, oh well, you know, if you need help, you gotta bring me some money. You know, it's like, you know, the cost of saffron is very high. You know, and I have to do all this stuff with the Quran. Look at him now.
Oh my
Oh,
God, really?
No, here is one from me. I was I was like didn't even believe in anything, but then I was pregnant with my third child or something, and somebody just forced me to turn. "No, you come. I'm gonna take you to this place, and they will you do something, and you definitely gonna have a boy." So I have three girls, Masha Allah. And I'm the only daughter with six boys. Like, I personally never craved for a boy, but my in-laws were like really boy crazy and all. I'm like, whatever. So I go there. It was a Shia family, and they had a tree, like a little sort of a tree. They said, just hang a solid gold apple here, and you're gonna have a boy because this is Ali's tree, Ali or Hussein's or something. So you will be. I'm like, holy smokes! Oh, wait on, wait a second. I am not. I am born in a Sunni family. I don't practice that, and all of a sudden I will become Shia now, and devote something a gold. Can you imagine a solid gold apple, even if it is the smallest apple, will cost me arm and a leg. I'm like, okay, I'll think about it. And I just ran from there. Oh my God. How wicked people are. Oh my God. Yeah, people would do anything for go to these peer and uh, yeah, like professional religionists.
I'll bring the gold iPhone, So this is just.
Yeah, that'd be nice.
I wouldn't even take that's very expensive too. Come on, Salamat.
or, or maybe
Yeah.
gold plated at least.
Hmm. Oh yeah, you bring this, you bring that. People have like so much business going on over there.
Mashallah,
Stuff.
some of my family is also they obey all this stuff. So one time I was in England and I went to one of the relatives' home and it was late evening and they wanted me to stay because they say there's some righteous person was coming to their home and they invited this person and he's gonna, make people's sin forgiven and these are regular Muslims and all that stuff that he's gonna do and he's gonna talk to each individual and ask them what's wrong with them and he's gonna bless them and all this stuff. And even though I was a regular Muslim, I mean, mashallah, how God protected me. I had no way to leave that place, and I didn't want to be in that house. And in England, it was cold, and I didn't want. I have no place to go, and I was begging them, please let me go, please let me go. And mashallah, how God arranged transportation for me before that guy came, and I left, and I found out the next day the way they did all that rituals in that home. It was the regular Sunni people. They're my relatives. All the crazy stuff. He's reading and he's spanking in their head and all to cleanse their sins. And oh my God. And even mashallah, that as a younger age, I mean, God, making me run away from all this stuff, mashallah.
Yeah,
Protected me.
Adam, same thing with me. Made me so repulsed from these weird rituals which made no sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I would feel gross about these
Right.
things. These every family would have like one um like so-called holy person, peer. So they will come and sit and everybody will sit in their feet. And I was like, oh, something very sinister about it. You would feel kind of something in your gut. Like, this is not right. Anyways, thank God for his guidance. Thank you, God. And God kept us away from bad religion, satanic.
Yeah, and in certain events in our life, how God protected us, mashallah, where
Yeah.
you would be like in that corner in that situation and God would pull us out.
I know, subhanallah. So God is so merciful. Praise be to
How do you how do you see these people that there's obviously they're disbelievers and then there are people who are believers and they're hypocrites and then there are people they say they believe but they like they're lazy. They don't do anything. They just say, yeah, we're fine. But they don't fight against God's religion. They don't. They say that, yeah, we believe in we, but they don't take any action. They're extremely lazy people. They just live their life and they just go. And I mean, you see that in pretty much every religion. How do you see these people where they fall?
You mean amongst submitters or the others? Others are no
Uh,
matter what, they're done.
they're done, right? Huh?
Yeah, they're whatever they are. They're, unless they still believe and worship God alone in their heart. And like
Yeah.
even people, for example, previous generation, let's say before Messenger of the Covenant, right? And even now, they must be who haven't received the message, and in their heart, they just feel that God is the one who's running everything, and God is in control. There are people like that, but who knows? Their recompenses with God. But if there are you mean non-strivers among submitters?
Yeah, no, also in like even traditional Islam or other religions, there are people that are absolutely neutral. Like they do believe, but they don't do anything.
No, they don't believe at
Yeah,
all.
are they hypocrite or
That's
are they
that's
sincere?
lip service. They really, if
That's
they really
absolutely.
did believe, they would do something about it. You
So
can
this
say
is
Yeah,
no,
they're
they're not
disobeying
believers.
God and His messengers, right? Because they're not practicing
They're not
anything.
practicing, right?
believers.
Yeah. But I
Absolutely
mean,
not.
there could be people that depending on how they like. For example, would be people who believe, like they don't reject anything, right? But they just never did enough to grow their souls, then they'll be weighed, but they never committed idol worship. They were not idol worshippers, which most people are, by the way, right? I mean, because they let's say somebody's that righteous where they're not into any sort of idol worship and they're submitters in definition, but then they never did enough righteous works to grow their soul substantially. I mean, they will fail, right? But I mean, there's people that might have been doing a lot of things and they might have been snacking. Some of them might barely make it, based on God's immense mercy. But but they have to have, I mean, the basic criteria, which is believe in God, believe in the hereafter, believe in the last day, and you know have enough righteous works so that they don't fall out. But it's very rare. It's going to be very difficult to find people like that. Thing is, if you really believe in everything, I mean, you'll do your best to try to do it. But that will apply to people, for example, who don't have all the details and all the right guidance. For example, there were people that were submitters, but they don't know how to do the contact prayers. They never got the message, stuff like that. Those people will not have done their contact prayers and stuff like that, but they'll have enough righteous works in their life, have done works that will just count as snacks, and maybe they'll just barely make it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I also wanted to comment on 47:26. It just reminds me, like, and 25 and 26. People who slide back after the guidance has been manifested to them, devil has enticed them and led them on. This is because they said to those who hated what God has sent down, "We will obey you in certain matters." God fully knows their secret conspiracies. So I think of that when I read this verse. I mean, I think of people. Uh, a good example, I think, that comes to my mind is that of actually circumcision, right? Because you have people that are following these are people that hate what God has sent down. I mean, people who have been practicing these rituals in their religion, and then these people tell them that they will obey them in these certain matters, that are clearly going against the Quran. Well, that's
Yeah,
all.
Masha Allah, I mean, this can nullify your whole work,
Mm-hmm.
without even realizing, And all that starts, like you guys mentioned, like, from something very, very small. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
Satan will not tell you something big. to go out of worship. He'll start you a very, very small thing, which you think maybe not, and that will lead one to next, There's somebody was giving example, like, like Satan will tell you somebody who's very, very nice person, doesn't do any bad. He say, what's wrong with talking to a girl on the phone? There's nothing wrong with that. So it's okay, fine. So talking to next, then all of a sudden you find yourself in a complete on the other side. So it always starts on something small. Thank you.
So you said talking to a girl on the phone? So I didn't get the example.
It was actually a long time ago, regular something. I think it was during a sermon. Somebody was saying that, like, they said they will start you off small, the same. That's his tricks. He'll tell you, okay, what's wrong? Like, having a girlfriend, going out, dating, and all that
Oh, I
negative
see.
behavior. What's wrong with talking on the phone? That's nothing wrong with that. You say, okay, yeah, I'm just talking on the phone. Then you start meeting up and you're going out, and all of a sudden you're living your wild life. That's how it starts. It will not. Satan will not tell you go out and start doing bad things, going to the clubs and drinking and all that. He will not tell you that. He'll start you very, very slow, something very small that you have no problem. In similar way, if somebody who's stealing, somebody who's cheating with money, and like you at your work, suppose you said, oh, what's wrong with $1? That's nothing big. And then when you get used to it, then it'll be more money, and before you know, it gets so worse. So you have to, like the fire, when it's small, it's easy to take care, but if the fire grows so big, then it's hard to contain it. Thank you.
Also, was thinking about 47:35 when it says, "You shall not waver and surrender in pursuit of peace, for you're guaranteed victory, and God is with you. He will never waste your efforts." And I think people do that sometimes. They will, for example, they'll see people going, against the religion and stuff, and they will. But instead of fighting against that, they will want to make peace with them, instead of fighting them, like compromise. This is a sort of where they compromise because they can live in peace together and they accept each other. Like, accepting somebody for whatever their belief is, in terms of, like, if anybody wants to disbelieve, you let them disbelieve, right? But then there is people, for example, who say, like, I think as we just talked about, for example, like, people who say you can eat meat dedicated to idols, or someone who says, oh, there's 2 days of judgment, 1 day of decision and 1 day of judgment 10 years later, or something like that. And then you say, well, this person's fighting, and this person's attacking, and this and that. So I'm just gonna go and befriend that person, so there's peace between us, and this person stops bad mouthing me or something, right? And I think that's to me, it's kind of like the same thing. Like, you basically kind of like surrender, and you waver in pursuit of a friendship and peace. And it doesn't sound like something that a believer will do. If someone who's fabricating lies to God and is trying to destroy the religion, you will never go and try to, like, compromise with this person and befriend them, so that there's no fighting. That just doesn't make sense.
Yeah, Masha Allah. We actually are so involved in this world that we don't see the true picture of ourselves. And the reality is completely the other way around. Yeah, the true thing is that the body that we see, this is not us. And our true self is the soul that is going to leave. And the sooner we understand this reality, God has given us, God says that, don't you see, walk on the earth and see the people before you, what they've done, and where they end up. This is the reality. I guess, when you go to like a graveyard and you look at the graves, and we should ponder upon that this is where this body is going to lie. I mean, this is not where I am going. I will be reporting back to God. And when you realize all that, then you, like you mentioned in this verse, surrender, and you shall not waver and surrender, because for the pursuit of peace, this is where the peace lies. Masha Allah, I mean, God has given us so much, but it's just the distraction in this world. I mean, this is the problem I've noticed, that a lot of time we are like get emotionalized, but when we leave the gathering, and then it's like devil is waiting outside or something, and it'll start enticing us, and I'm talking about in just general. This is what happens in general in the world, that people like they get emotionalized, and as soon they leave there, that's like going down the drain, and they go back to their same behavior. I mean, even the regular submission, a lot of time we go to the sermons and they will talk for like an hour, and we get so energized, but as soon we leave, nothing changed. At least we start applying some of the things that we learn, may change us. It's like we're not sincere at all with God. We're sincere with this world.
Also, also I wanted to comment on verse 38, where it says this warning to the Arabs, and they were invited to spend in the cause of God, but not only did they turn stingy, but I mean they turned away, right? It says if you turn away, you'll substitute other people in your place, and they will not be like you. So we can see that, as it says in the footnote, that the Quran was given to Arabs in their language for 1400 years, but they rejected it and refused it, and they fabricated hadith and sunnah, and we can see now they don't have the Quran anymore. They don't have the guidance. And I think the same would apply to anybody, that God gives it to them, gives them a chance to uphold the religion and to spend in the cause of God, and to promote the religion. And there will be people that will, of course, they turn away, they turn stingy, or they turn away from the message, and then God substitutes other people. Then that's His system, and this is why we see that many generations of people, from many different parts of the world, got God's message, and then they were like the Arabs were the most important community, right, at that time, but not anymore. If these people who have the message now, I mean, that could be us if we uphold it, but if we don't, God is saying that He can substitute other people and they will not be like us, So I guess that means that we have to do what we can to spend in the cause of God and to strive in the cause of God as much as possible, with the means that God has given us, and not be among the sedentary. Like I think one of the questions you asked was kind of similar, well, about the sedentary in a way, but right, obviously the strivers, God gives them higher ranks too. I mean, also, I mean, why would we not want to do that if we truly believe that we will be rewarded for our efforts?
Yeah, mashallah. They had the Quran giving in their language, but similarly, God has given us the translation that we can understand in such a clear words. And after that, if we slide back, that can really, really put us in the same situation. We're not different from anybody else. The surah starts off from such a strong statements. The start from the first verse is those who disbelieve and repel from the path of God. Those who disbelieve and repel from the path of God, He nullified their works. Those who believe and work righteousness and believe in what was sent down to Muhammad, which is the truth from their Lord, He remits their sins and blesses them with contentment. I mean, this is like right in the off. God saying talks about the disbeliever and the righteous who believe and to obey what is sent down. And there's no mention of anything other than Quran, to follow the Quran, the word of God, Quran, but nothing but the Quran. And And this surah, like ends in the similar, meaning that if you turn away, He will substitute other people in your place, and they will be not like you. Masha Allah, amazing. A lot of people also do not know what is in the Quran. I mean, I have came across several people, like they will say about the incident of Miraj. When there's a whole story about in the Hadith that he went up on the to God, and so they say, "What are you talking about? Have you read Surah Miraj? The whole incident is in there," and it becomes to their shock. Yeah, they think that it's the whole story is in the Miraj, Surah Miraj. It's number 70. Yeah, and then you tell them, no, it's not mentioned. I say, what are you talking about? I say, have you read the
Al
Quran? I say,
Marriage.
yeah,
Al
Al-Marij,
Marriage.
yeah, Surah number 70. They think that the whole incident is in there. I said, there's not even, I don't mean, there's mentioned about the Prophet or anything. The only thing is the heights is the heights of, the status of God, the height, like where, the Arsh, probably the God status, the ultimate heights. And then a lot of people have misconception that they think the Surah Muhammad, God is talking all about him and praising him or something like that. So it's to their shock that it's not even there. One time there was this salat in a traditional mosque, and the Imam was reading Surah Yusuf, where the incident where they stole the cup, that part was going on. And after the salat, the guy went to the Imam. He said, "At least you should have finished the story because you left right in the middle." He said, "What story? A story about when Joseph brother came to him and he put the cup in their baggage. So at least you should have finished the story." And the Imam said, "What cup are you talking about?" He didn't even know about the story of Joseph. He's just reading in
Mhm.
Arabic because he memorized the Quran. So he explained to the story, and he was shocked. So this is how bad is it, because they read it, but they don't know what is in the Quran. Very scary.
Yeah, I mean, if they knew what was in the Quran, I mean, they wouldn't be like doing things like molesting children and all that kind of stuff, of course.
Right. When you come so close to the, I mean, I just share my experience. That I've been in this field for like 20 years, and visiting elderly people, taking care of them, and to their like last moments. Sometimes I visit people in a hospice, and right on their edge of their life. I mean, this is the true realities. I mean, it's just, this is how bad. This is the end of our life. I mean, there's nothing secret hidden in it. And many times, I mean, I would come out with so much like crying face, looking at the reality of this world, and people still don't take heed. I mean, it's pretty sad. I mean, I would encourage, if you have in your family who's elder, or in the nursing home or in the hospital, something, you should visit more often. So maybe you can come in close to the reality. This is the true reality. This is where we all gonna go. This is the hard truth. I mean, one time I was talking to one of my close friends, and I talked a little bit about that, and he's like, he wants to hang up the phone. He said, "Stop scaring me." I said, "What do you mean, stop scaring you? This is the reality. There's nothing hidden. We are eventually gonna go that path sooner or later. It could be, tomorrow. We don't even know if we're gonna take the second breath. Like if we can even see the whole day, or even next hour. You know, we never know when our time is up. Mashallah. Thank you."
Okay. Do we have any other questions or comments? Any off topic? If not, maybe we could end the broadcast.
Yeah, I think it's okay.
Okay, inshallah. So thank you all for joining us, and God willing, our next study is going to be on Tuesday at 2 p.m. Pacific time, and our teacher, God willing, in Nubrat.
Masha Allah. Assalamu alaikum. Thank you very much.
Thank you, mashallah. Assalamu alaikum.
So,